I just want to say good morning and thank you to everybody for joining me on this awesome, beautiful Friday morning. I love that a lot of you guys have left your cameras on. I can see you and that makes me happy. So if you don't mind putting it on so I can see you, that's great. If you do and you're kind of still waking up on a Friday morning, that's fine. I understand completely. For those of you that may not know me, I am Melissa Reynolds. I'm currently the assistant principal over at Moyock Elementary. Go Panthers. But I also formerly taught 5th grade at Scarborough, so I got a little Mustang in my heart too. A little bit of both. And before that, I taught for several years in Virginia Beach at a couple elementary schools there. So that's kind of my background. I have about 19 years in education right now. I recognize a lot of you, both your names and your faces. Some of you I know through community service work. I'm active in the Moyock Women's Club, and I am the chairwoman of a nonprofit called Currituck Kids Incorporated. So sometimes I've been involved with some of you all through that process. But anyways, I am here to talk to you guys today, or with you today, about the 7 habits of highly effective people. Sadie reached out to me and asked me if I would do a session, and I was so happy she did because it's very near and dear to my heart, and I love talking about it. So just to give you a little information, there's 2 big books that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about. This book here is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's written by Dr. Stephen Covey. And it is the book that I'll probably talk the most about today. So I'll come back to that in a second. But this book here is called The Leader in Me. It's also written by Dr. Stephen Covey. And this book is actually how I got into the 7 habits. This is where I started. So this book is about taking the 7 habits and applying them to schools. So apparently this lady named Muriel Summers came to Dr. Stephen Covey in 1999, I think, and went to one of his sessions and said, "Hey, Stephen, what do you think about using the 7 habits in schools?" Because at that time, the 7 habits were mostly being focused on in big businesses. CEOs of companies were hiring Franklin Covey Group to come out, talk to their employees. And he was like, "I don't know." And she said, "Well, I'm thinking about using it in schools." And he's like, "I don't know. Maybe it would work. Kids are little and I don't really know. I talk to grown-ups." And she's like, "Well, I think it would work." And he's like, "Well, let me know how it goes." So she tried it and she was right. It worked well. And he was really impressed with how well what he had designed for an older audience transferred to a younger audience. So he networked with her to write this book. So this is actually where I jumped in and started learning about the 7 habits. But quickly, I realized I really wanted to back up and go back to this book to really, truly know the depth of the habits, to get deep into the 7 habits. So that gives you a little background on how I got started in it. Now, I have been formally trained in the 7 habits from the Covey group. So when you do that, you get one of these really cool books. So if you ever get the opportunity to do it, the trainer will come out and walk you through all the habits and you fill in personal responses to it. It's really awesome. So having said that, I have done book studies before, and even some of you guys have participated in them before for these 2 books. But I'm used to, first of all, talking for hours about each habit, and the sessions last for weeks. We did a book study at Scarborough, and it was every Thursday. So this is my first time doing this. First of all, on a camera, on a computer, instead of live in person serving coffee. And also my first time trying to give the speed version of 2 minutes per habit. So I'm going to try not to talk a lot, but those of you who know me, good luck, right? So I'm going to try. The other thing that I'm going to try to do different today is when I've done book studies in the past with the books, I always connect it to the leader in me. I always connect it back to the classroom because I'm talking to teachers and I'm talking about how they can apply these habits in their classroom and teach their students these habits. I'm going to try something different today and not do that. I would like to take, as we go through the habits, and make the connections go to personal connections with an emphasis on this new normal that we're all living. How do these 7 habits connect to working from home and the new lifestyle that we're living through these COVID-19 school closures? And also a little bit of a connection to the parenting side of it all, because those of us that are parents are parenting a lot more than we were, and in a different way too. So I thought it would be fun for me and fun for you guys to switch it up a little bit and not talk about the classroom so much, but connect to what we're doing right now with that. So that being said, I am going to share a presentation. Now, like I said before, my awesome husband set me up with a double monitor, and I can see you guys and I can see my presentation, and he's got me a nice speaker, and I think it's gonna work out, but I don't know. We tried out some things this morning. There were some technical difficulties. Hopefully it doesn't work, but hopefully it works, and if it doesn't, just flag me. Also, if you have any questions at any time, put them in the chat, turn your mic on, ask me, it'll be fun. So that being said, I'm gonna share PowerPoint. And I can still see all of you, and you can see it, right? Everybody can see it? Awesome. Okay, so this is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's written by Dr. Stephen Covey. It's only presented by me. I don't own any of this, as well as Dr. Covey himself would tell you that he didn't create these 7 habits. He just studied, during his doctoral program, he studied what do really successful, effective people do? What do they all have in common? So years of looking at their character traits, looking at their work habits, and figuring out where's the patterns. What do people who are successful have in common, whether they're athletes or leaders? What do they have in common? And so he took those, they call them principles, and looked at them and applied them, and then gave them structure and put them in an order, 1 through 7. So that's what I'm going to do today, is to show you the order of these habits and principles and how he structured them. All right. So the way that he outlined the book is in 4 parts to guide that structure. So that's the way I'm going to go through things today. We're going to talk about paradigms and principles first, and then the private victory, public victory, and a little bit about renewal. So paradigms and principles come first. This is really the groundwork of getting to know the 7 habits. You can't really wrap your brain around those individual habits yet till you get what creates them, what builds them. So we'll start with paradigms. Paradigm is such a fun word to say. Like, I want to be like, I have a pair of dimes in my hand, but it's not the same thing. It's paradigms. It's from the Greek, and it means how we see things. Not in terms of your visual sense of sight, not what you see with color and shape, but in perception, in understanding. So you often can see like little fun graphics like these two, where it's like, oh, what do you see? Do you see a man holding a saxophone? Or do you see a lady, I don't know, looking out into a dark room? It's about the way that you see things, the perceptions that you have, the way that you understand something. Everybody's understanding of things is not the same, but it guides your decision making, and it guides the way that you react to things, the way that you operate is all built on the way you see something, your perspective. So having said that, we have as a human race, we have paradigms and perspectives that are more widespread, that are cohesive, that we all agree on. And sometimes those paradigms shift. So I'm going to show you some classic paradigm shifts so you can kind of wrap your head around it all. All right. So for example, at one point, we thought the Earth was the center of the universe, but now a paradigm shift has led us to believe that the sun is the center of the universe. At one point, we all, human race, thought the Earth was flat, and now we realize the Earth is a sphere. Other paradigm shifts come from government. The concept that power belonged to a divine king has made a paradigm shift, and really the United States is the birth of a paradigm shift in the fact that we have a democracy and a change in the way that we view what power looks like, what leadership looks like. You know, it's not so long ago that we had a nation of people who believed in rights for only certain people. And we are having a paradigm shift where we're moving towards equal rights for all people. And education, we've had a paradigm shift, lots of them, but I was put on the list here, proficiency model. We've gone from, it used to be all about grades, all about proficiency, pass, fail, pass, fail. And we've kind of taken on a more growth model approach to looking at where a student is and then how we grow them. So these are shifts in paradigm and the way that we look at things. So I want to tell you guys about the story of Shaquill and Shaquem Griffin. Does anybody know Shaquill and Shaquem Griffin? No? Yes? Maybe? No? Okay. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about them. And then at the end of this, I'm going to ask you why I included, if you can think about why I included this in the paradigm portion of this presentation. So there's these twin brothers in Florida. Born in Florida, twin brothers. And Shaquem was born with a condition where his left hand did not develop appropriately. So at age 4, his parents made the decision to have his left hand amputated. He was in a lot of pain and suffering, and they didn't want that for him. At age 8, the boys, being very close, being both athletic, with a love of football, decided to make a pact. And they said, we're the best brothers ever. You know, it's not like a stepbrother, we're the best brothers ever. No, they were the best brothers ever. They loved each other. They made a pact that they were always going to live together. They were going to go to the same college. They were going to go to this, they were going to be in the NFL together. They were going to marry twins, and those twins were going to live with them. And it was going to be the best life ever. And they stuck to that pact. So as they got older through high school in Central Florida, Shaquill got a lot of offers to play football, but Shaquem didn't get as many, but he stuck to his part of the pack. He gave up opportunities to go to more affluent schools so that he could find a school that he and his brother could both go to together and both play football. And that's what they did at the University of Central Florida. And just to give you a little background about that, Shaquill got more playing time than Shaquem. In fact, Shaquem redshirted. I don't know if you know what that means, but typically when you're in a university and you play a sport, you can only play for 4 years, and as a freshman you would redshirt if you're not going to make any game time on the field, and then you can get an extra year. So Shaquill actually graduated a year before Shaquem and went to play for the Seattle Seahawks, while Shaquem finished out his year at Central Florida. So that's the background information you need to know about Shaquill and Shaquem Griffin. Now 60 Minutes did an awesome interview with them, and then after the interview, talking about the interview with the journalist that did the interview. So that's what I'm going to show you a few minutes of this clip about them. And I'm going to
60 Minutes overtime.
I am going to skip it ahead to the part that I want you to see, which is right here.
Let's talk about the Griffin brothers' parents. As a parent watching this, I'm making a lot of mental notes. What can we all learn from Terry and Tanji from a parenting perspective?
They could write a book on parenting. They're awesome parents. One of my favorite moments is, I asked him, how do you teach him to catch a ball without a hand?
Well, you get hit in the face about 5, 6, 7 times. You start catching.
There was no babying going on in the Griffin house. And that probably is really good parenting advice. Again, if something bad happens to you 5 or 6 times, you figure it out. You sort it out.
Did he ever come to you when he was little and go, why me? No. Never had that. Did you ever say, why him?
No. He never came and said, why is this happening to me? Never.
I tell him to throw it on the back of the truck. Man, throw that on the back of the truck. We'll talk about that later.
Throw it on the back of the
Throw it
truck.
on the back of the truck.
They talk about language. The word handicap.
Oh, that's not a word that Shaquem will accept.
We didn't use the word handicap. That kind of burns him up.
Why does it burn him up?
Because he's not handicapped.
The word disability.
An insult.
You won't hear that in our story.
You guys purposely didn't use those words.
Because it's a vocabulary that's alien to the Griffin family.
There's a moment in the interview when you're talking with Tanji Griffin about this dark period, a low point for Shaquem when he's in college, he's not getting played, and he wants to quit. And it's pretty revealing how she handled that situation.
Yeah, it was a struggle for 3 years. And I explained to him, I said, no, you can't leave. I said, your brother sacrificed a lot. He's planned. He's turned out a lot of schools for you. Now you're going to have to continue your sacrifice. You cheer him on. I don't care if you go get pom-poms and cheer, but you're going to stay there and you're going to support him. The same way we're going to support you guys behind you, you're going to support him.
He's got one hand, it's not being played. It would have been understandable if she had said, you can quit.
But she knows they need each other.
It was a flip side of that pact.
He was really ready to quit.
He was ready. And if he was leaving, Shaquill was going to leave.
It's not just about Shaquem, it's also about Shaquill.
Right.
And over again, they make this decision, brothers above everything.
Brothers above all.
And that's a great thing to hear in a time when people are kind of there for themselves.
Okay, so now you know all about Shaquill and Shaquem Griffin, and hopefully you're thinking about what does that have to do with paradigms? What does that have to do with the perspective and the way that you see things? I don't know, maybe somebody wants to chat in the chat box, unmute their mic, let me know what you think about Shaquill and Shaquem and that paradigm. No? That's okay. For me, yay, I'm glad you love it. Awesome. I love the story too. And in fact, I'm going to come back to it lots of times throughout today. It's very inspirational. My favorite part is when Dad says, you get hit in the face with the ball 5 or 6 times, you can figure out how to catch it. They never said, oh, Shaquem can't play football. They never said, like you just said, disability is not a word. It's not a hindrance. Their perspective was, you can do anything that your brother can do. Doesn't matter that your left hand is gone. So it was about the perspective that his parents used in raising him. Exactly, Annie. His mom did not allow him to quit. It was their perspective, regardless of that circumstance, regardless of the difference. It wasn't viewed as a disability. The fact that they completely ignored the language of handicap and disabled, it's exactly that. So awesome. I'm so glad that you guys are into them. I'm going to come back around and share more about them throughout the whole presentation, but it's definitely, to me, a way of looking at your perspective as a parent and how you parent. So it's all about paradigms. All right, so principles. Principles are I'm not going to talk a lot about them, but basically not principles like Miss Kelly, who's on here today. Hi, Miss Kelly. But principles like when you hear somebody say, it's about the principle. It's just about the principle. That kind of principle. It's basically the fundamental truth or foundation that guides what you believe, that guides a structure. So principles are used for foundation in religion, in government, science, justice, character. So like an example would be like, we believe in the principle of you earn what you get and you don't steal, you don't take from others. That's a principle that guides our justice system. It guides our government. We have rules and laws based on that principle. It's all the foundation of where it all begins. So these principles are embedded in the 7 habits. So when I go through each habit, I'm going to tell you about the guiding principle behind that habit. Hopefully that makes sense, Bo. All right, so I'm going to stop here, and I got these little discussion slides built in. And like I said, I kind of want to bring it back. This is new for me, to what we're doing right now with COVID, our parenting stuff, ask if there's any questions or anything. So for me, when I think about paradigms and principles and where we are right now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling overwhelmed by information. There's such a conflict of information going on right now, but it's all based on people's paradigms. If you're the person who hasn't seen anybody that's sick and you don't know anybody that's sick, you might be the person who's saying, this was a plandemic. The government's out to get us. They're trying to control us. And that may be your paradigm, your perspective with regard to the situation we're in. If you are an EMS worker, a hospital worker, your paradigm could be very different. And your thought about this may be, I can't believe that woman's not wearing a mask as she enters the Home Depot. So I think those are guiding our thoughts and our, not just our thoughts, but our reactions to what we're doing with regard to this right now, what our expectations are. So that's kind of where I feel like paradigm falls in with what we're doing. Did anyone have any other questions or anything? Is there anything in the chat room? Yes. Oh, Amanda, like you said that the sibling relationship from the two brothers, that it was more about, just as equally about Shaquill as it was about Shaquem, and through all that was the parent's perspective. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I can always get back if we need to. Ooh, maybe. All right, so now we're really going to dive into the 7 habits. This graphic here is called the maturity continuum. It's something that the Franklin Covey group made to show you the 7 habits. So basically, I'm going to kind of break it down for you because it's everything about this graphic is actually strategic. So here at the bottom, we have dependence. Human beings are born like babies. When they're born, they're adorable. I know Kate Rose is on here. Kate's little baby Bennett's about to turn 1 year old. He is the most adorable baby ever. Sorry, my 2 kids. He is the cutest baby ever. So even cute little baby Bennett can't do anything for himself. He is dependent. He is at the bottom of, he can't eat on his own. Babies need other human beings to be able to function. So at some point, I mean, you can't say, hey, baby, go make a grilled cheese. The baby's not going to go make his grilled cheese sandwich. But at some point, you do want to be able to say, hey, baby, go make a grilled cheese, and have them be able to do it. They got to be independent. So how do we get from the dependence that we're born at to becoming independent? That's the first 3 habits, the private victory, the part where you grow as yourself only. So that's where we're going to start, is the first 3. Now, I believe that the Covey group was strategic in making each one of these about the same size and shape and the way that they made this graphic. However, I would argue, and I don't claim to know all about the 7 habits, but a lot. I would argue that habit 1 should even be bigger. It is really the base of it all. If it was a building, it would be its foundation. You can't go to any other habit until you really master habit 1. So having said that, I'll probably talk the most about habit 1. And then when it's like 9:45 and you're like, oh my God, she's only on habit 2. We're never going to finish. I'll just go really fast then afterward. But so we're going to talk about habit 1 first. All right. Habit 1 is the habit of self-awareness and choice. It's rooted in the concept of stimulus response. Something happens to you or around you and you respond. But within that, everybody has a freedom to choose. So that's where that choice part comes in. So a simple example I always used to give in the classroom when I was teaching the 7 habits was to a student, okay, you're standing there minding your own business, another kid comes running along, they step on your foot. That happened to you and you can respond. You're going to respond in a million different ways, though. You have a freedom to choose. Do you respond by doing nothing, ignoring it? Do you respond by saying, ouch, hey, you just stepped on my foot? Do you respond like maybe some of our first graders by taking your fist and shoving it in that kid's face? How do you respond to that stimulus, that thing that happened? And knowing in habit 1 is that you have the freedom to choose. Sometimes you all know people like this who say, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't, this happened to me and it's all about what happened to me and not that I ever had the choice or the opportunity to respond in any way that I felt like I had control over. So when you really dive deep into the 7 habits and you go through habit 1, this is where we talk about the circle of concern and the circle of influence. And I know Miss Dowdy mentioned this on her presentation the other day. focusing on what you have in your control. What is in your control? Your circle of influence grows when you think about what you have control over and you focus on the things that you can control and let go of some of the things you cannot control. If your focus is constantly on the stimulus around you, then your circle of concern grows, but your circle of influence shrinks. You become victimized and have no control. So this guiding principle in habit 1 is that you're free to choose your own actions and your moods, and you're responsible for your own choices. So when you're teaching it at a school, it seems real basic. Hey, be proactive, do something before you're asked, make sure you're in a good mood. But really, as adults, it's deeper than that. It's bigger than that. We tend to also, in grown-up ways, look at things like, oh, that was out of my control, that happened to me. Or, yeah, I'm in a bad mood. I woke up this morning and my car had a flat tire and I'm trying to blah, blah, blah. When really, so at some point, you got to say, okay, this happened. How do I get past it? So I want to show you a couple cute videos and a serious video that goes with habit 1, be proactive, because I like videos. And I figured out how to load them. So this one's from Franklin Covey Group.
Monday morning, and it's raining. A gray, melancholy day. On a day like this, maybe we can be excused for feeling gray and melancholy ourselves. We get into a mood, and the whole day seems to go badly. Don't you feel better when the weather outside is great? But what if you could carry your own weather within you? When you carry your weather with you, you can choose to be consistent regardless of how people treat you. That's what it means to be proactive. Being reactive is the opposite of being proactive, not taking responsibility for our own life. You always see yourself as a victim of the weather, of your moods, of someone who has it in for you. We have the power and the freedom to choose, to create our own weather each day.
Okay, so that's actually Dr. Covey before he passed away, really telling you about what he had intended with habit 1, and a lot of it is with mood. And I got to give you a disclaimer right now, because I want to say that as somebody who's telling you about all of these doesn't mean that I do it all the time myself. I actually was on Tuesday morning when Miss Dowdy was doing her presentation, my internet went out right away at 9:02 when she was doing hers. And at first I went through the internet going out denial stages where I was like, is someone frozen? Is it hers? And then I was like, oh my God, the internet's down. And so then I'm like running around the house, trying to figure it out, getting grumpier and grumpier by the minute. And my husband comes out and he's like, so what? It's out of your control. And I'm like, but what if this happens on Friday morning when I'm doing my presentation? Like, the root of where my anxiety was coming from came out. But again, at the same time, he was like, you're talking about what you can and can't control, right? Aren't you doing your little 7 habit thing? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, hello. So I'm like, oh, you do listen to me. I'm going to use that against you later. But apparently he's listening. He knows. I don't always focus on what's in my control either. I can say it. I know it. But sometimes something happens and it makes you feel, and your feels take over. But consciously trying to do it makes all the world of difference. All right, so this one's a fun one I used to show my class all the time. I like this one.
Well, that's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello! There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, Would somebody please do something? I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, enough left to do.
Hello? Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
He said he can fix it. All right. All right. That's more like it. He says he can fix it.
So, even children, I love that video, can tell you what's wrong with that situation. Even your first graders can go, I don't get it. Why didn't they just walk up the steps? Because some people cannot see past the problem. And I know you know who these people are. You've got to be thinking about someone in your life who's a victim and everything's not their fault. And when they have a problem, they don't even attempt to look at the fact that they could walk up the steps. Probably someone related to you that maybe you dodge at Christmas time. But I know you're thinking of somebody right now that, you know, you probably know. But problem solving is what grows out of habit one. So that's why if you don't have habit one as that foundation, then you really can't move on from there. The last video I'm going to show you in this over here is a little bit deeper. It's a little bit more serious, but I feel like we're grown-ups, so I'm going to try it anyway. Hope I don't offend anyone, but here we go.
I was just having a debate with a friend of mine, and we got stuck on the difference between fault and responsibility. She kept talking about how something was somebody's fault. And I was like, it don't matter whose fault it is that something is broken, if it's your responsibility to fix it. For example, it's not somebody's fault if their father was an abusive alcoholic, but it's for damn sure their responsibility to figure out how they're going to deal with those traumas and try to make a life out of it. It's not your fault if your partner cheated and ruined your marriage, but it is for damn sure your responsibility to figure out how to take that pain and how to overcome that and build a happy life for yourself. Fault and responsibility do not go together. It sucks, but they don't. When something is somebody's fault, we want them to suffer. We want them punished. We want them to pay. We want it to be their responsibility to fix it, but that's not how it works, especially when it's your heart. Your heart, your life, your happiness is your responsibility and your responsibility alone. As long as we're pointing the finger and stuck in whose fault something is, we're jammed and trapped into victim mode. When you're in victim mode, you're stuck in suffering. The road to power is in taking responsibility. Your heart, your life, your happiness is your responsibility and your responsibility alone.
So he goes on a little bit longer, but you get the point. I'm so glad you guys are putting positive responses about that in the chat box, because I think that that's a hard thing to get past sometimes, is that when something truly bad happens to someone, so there are people who live through a lot of adversity in their life, and that they can be inclined to want to give up, but it's your life in the end, and so you have the freedom to choose how you're going to deal with that situation. So I really feel like it spoke to, and this is a hard concept. I know I kept saying I wasn't going to talk about school, but this is a hard concept to teach children, because fault is a big deal to them. It's not my fault. It was his fault. He started it. I mean, if you're a small kid teacher, like a kindergarten, even probably big kid teachers too, you're constantly hearing about whose fault it is. So, you know, I got you all amped up to run a marathon. Awesome. We'll talk about that in habit 7. That's habit 7, Meredith. Slow down. All right. So anyway, I really feel like habit 1 is the foundation of everything. So it's if you can't really see that you have control and where your control lies, you can't grow from there. You can't get any bigger than that. So that's why I wanted to spend the most time talking about habit 1. But all right, going to take a little break here. check in. I've been kind of keeping an eye on the chat box, but Helen let me know if there's some questions in there that I missed. But then, so I told you I was going to try to stop and make COVID connections and parenting connections. So I picked this picture here to make a parenting connection. I don't know, maybe you can think about it for a second and think, why did she put that nasty picture on there? So I don't know about you guys, but I got sand spurs ridiculous in my yard right now. It only took me 2 times of walking barefoot in the yard to figure out that's a stimulus, and my response is I need to get some shoes. So as parents, we would see our children walk out the door, don't forget shoes, don't forget your shoes. Hey, you're going outside, you better get some shoes. At some point, we have to let them step on the spurs and feel the pain to know that they have to get their shoes so that they can become the one who's proactive. If I'm always telling you to get your shoes, are you proactive or am I proactive? So I kind of wanted to make that connection to everyone, because I don't know if you're feeling the way I am right now. I'm just gonna lay it out there. I don't know if any of my son's teachers are on here, but on the whole workload thing, he's not always doing all of his work. I could sit there and map out all his work for him and have him sitting next to me and do it all. But then he's getting ready to, he's an 8th grader. He's getting ready to go to high school. He's going to be a 9th grader and be a freshman in high school. Is he learning anything out of that? I want him to feel what it feels like to disappoint a teacher, what it feels like to suffer the consequences of a bad grade. He's in the wrong house for a mama that's going to save his butt, because it's not going to happen here. Because I need him to step on a sand spur and feel what it feels like, so that he's not 47 living in my basement and I have to tell him to put shoes on. I can't do that. So at some point he's got to feel the pain of it. So I don't know how you guys feel as parents. Sometimes it's a big job for us, and it's definitely bigger now than ever, but just something to consider. All right. Stop me if I need to. Otherwise I'm going to roll on, because I really talk a lot. All right, so habit 2. This is begin with the end in mind. This is the habit of vision. We teachers are all about, educators are all about habit 2. We got plans for our plans, and then plans for those plans. And we love to make a schedule. So this whole COVID thing is jacking us up for sure. But this is the part where the guiding principle here, oops, let me move that out of the way. No, go back. Maybe it'll disappear. The guiding principle here is that mental creation precedes physical creation. You got to envision it. You got to see it in your head before you can actually build it. If any of you have husbands or family members that are construction, you know that they don't just roll into a lumber yard and just start throwing wood on a truck and say, oh, I'm going to build something. They make a blueprint. They make a plan of what it's going to look like before they actually build it. For organizations, this tends to be mission statements. We as an organization, whether that's a school or a community service organization, we have a vision of what we want for our outcomes. For me in my role, it has a lot to do with anticipating outcomes. When I have it too, I think to myself, okay, tomorrow I have to call this parent. They might say blah, blah, blah. So I got to be ready to say blah, blah, blah. That might happen. But then again, they might say something else. And I got to think about, I often play scenarios through my head, because that's the habit 2 in me. I want to think about what possibly could happen. It's probably torture for my husband, because I got answers for every one of his responses, but I plan ahead and think about it. So that's your habit 2, is visualizing where you want to go. You don't get in your car and just then start driving. Well, maybe we are starting to do that because we're all going crazy, but typically you know where you're going to go when you get in the car, because you have an end in mind. So that's the begin with the end in mind. All right, habit 3, like I said, I'm gonna go through these faster, is your put first things first habit. This is it's called the habit of integrity and execution, but it's really the habit of time management. It's where you start to think about the task in your day and evaluate them. Are they urgent? Are they not urgent? Are they important? And then you begin to prioritize these tasks. And then maybe make schedules, meet your commitments, things like that. So in the Franklin Covey program, they have the 4 quadrants. So I don't know if you can kind of see it very well, but they put urgent and non-urgent as the 2 columns and important and non-important as the 2 rows. So your quadrant 1 falls with things that are both important and urgent. Quadrant 1 is your house is on fire. Yeah, that's kind of important. And also, it's not going to wait. It's urgent. Your house is on fire. You got to deal with that. That's your crisis. Those are things that pop up. They're not planned for, and they often take the most amount of your time and prioritizing. Quadrant 2 is not super urgent, but important. This is the one that sometimes people let get away from them because urgency can kind of guide where you spend your time. So quadrant 2, it put personal stuff on here, but for me, for like, I guess the educator parent perspective is like creating things, getting around to actually making that crisis plan that you wanted to put, or getting around to that project that was important, but you keep putting it off because it doesn't have its own deadline. So people who are very effective actually focus a lot of their time over here. They don't, even though it's not urgent, they don't let it get away from them. Over here at quadrant 3, we have what's urgent, or at least feels urgent, but not important. That's the sneaky quadrant. That's the time-stealing, sneaky quadrant that makes you feel like, what did I get done today? I was supposed to be doing all this stuff over here in quadrant 2, and I let all this quadrant 3 just sneak right in. So quadrant 3 could be that email you get from a parent, or that dojo you get from a parent, and it's all sassy, and you're like, I got to stop my read aloud right now, put this book down, and tell this parent what is the deal. It feels urgent, but it could maybe wait. So that's where quadrant 3 kind of gets a little bit sneaky. Now, quadrant 4, we all love quadrant 4. That is not important, not urgent. That's like, I don't know, Netflix, Facebook, all the time wasters, all the things that, you know, before you know it, you're like, whoa, I sat here and watched the entire season of OBX. Wow. It's deceiving like quadrant 3, but it didn't even, there's no value in it really. Well, and I say that cautiously because when we get to habit 7, sometimes there is value in just doing meaningless things for fun. So I will say that with caution. But I will often tell my friends, you're quadrant 4 in me right now. I got stuff to do. I need to get back to quadrant 2. These are the ways that we look at time management and things. You are having a hard time. I'm used to say you're having a hard time. Yes, exactly, Teresa. So again, I'm going to stop and make connections here and just ask everybody. I got to tell you right now, habit 3 is the hardest for me in the COVID situation. I love this graphic because not only does it feel like Groundhog's Day a little bit right now, like every day is the same, like wake up, make coffee, sit at this spot right here with the fireplace behind me, hope that nothing crazy happens back there, and move through my day, and that's it. Where it used to be, you know, go to the building, anything could happen all day long at the building, then I'm going to go to a sporting event. For my, there used to be variety in my day, and I feel like it's Groundhog's. But I also love that the graphic has a clock on it because it just pulls me back to how hard time management is for me right now. I feel like my struggle of all the habits, the most right now with the COVID is habit 3, because this is where I eat, this is where I sleep, this is where I work, this is everything. So the stopping and starting and the lines of where things begin and end are very confusing and blurred right now. I don't know. Is anybody having that same struggle in their house with managing what's what, and just time management in general? Yeah. Oh, good. I can get an amen. All right, good. But here we are. We have learned how we have control. The struggle is real. We have learned how we have control. We have learned how we can prioritize. And so where we fall is independent. So we've done habit 1, 2, and 3. We're not cute little baby Bennett anymore. We are now independent people who can make our own grilled cheese and prioritize and schedule. So before we roll into habit 4, this is where we start to play nice with others. Everything below habit 4 was all internal. It was self stuff. As we move forward into habit 4, 5, and 6, we're going to involve other people in our life. And you know, it really is a maturity continuum, because if you think about child growth and development, I don't know that a 6-year-old even really truly knows there's other people in the world. You know what I mean? It's like somewhere around age 10 where they start to realize, oh, snap, there really truly are other people. I need to be considerate of other people. We're very egocentric in our youth. So as we move into habit 4, we're going to start playing nice with others and have a public victory. So habit 4 is the habit of mutual benefit. Think win-win. It's really rooted in problem solving, but it doesn't even have to be a problem to win or not win. It's the concept of abundance. It's the idea that there's enough for you, there's enough for me, that I don't have to have all. It's the social skills goals that Miss Rhodes is always writing on those kindergarten IEPs. Share. It's the idea that I don't have to have all the marbles. I don't have to have all the Legos. There's enough for everybody. So what really happens in habit 4, think win-win, regardless of whether there's a problem you're trying to solve or not, it's a matter of, exactly, Nicole, balancing courage to advocate, self-advocate for your perspective, for your point of view, for your needs, but also balancing that courage with consideration for other people's needs, other people's perspectives, things like that. It is an attitude. And so right here, the guiding principle says that it's effective long-term relationships require mutual respect and mutual benefit. So the key here to me in this principle is long-term. Anybody who interacts with another person has a relationship. If that relationship is always one-sided, it's always win-lose, it's always me taking advantage of you, it's not going to be long-term. That person's going to move on away from me real quick because they realize that they're never going to get a win. I'm a win-lose. That's the way it's going to be. I'm never going to win-win with you. Then what happens is you don't build trust. Other people watch your relationships with other people. They see what you do to other people. So if you are somebody who's win-lose and you're always the one that wants to win, it's not even about the relationship that you have with that one person. Of course, you're going to lose trust with that person, and that person's going to move on. But other people will see that as a pattern for you as well. So the attitude of abundance and the fact that we can all have a win is kind of what builds the trust between your relationships with people. All right. So having said that, we get into habit 5. Habit 5 is my favorite habit. It's my favorite habit. I think because it ties to paradigm so much, the perspective and the way that you see people. Habit 5 is the habit of mutual understanding. It's all about empathy and active listening and perspective, looking at something from somebody else's point of view. I know my paradigms and perspectives. They're instant, they're natural in me, but I love to look for other people's point of view. I try to, before I decision make, I try to stop, take a break, think about how it affects this person, think about how it affects that person. How does it, it's kind of like, as a parent, when you have 2 children and they're fighting, or maybe you have 12 children and they're all fighting, you think about each person's perspective. And okay, well, you know what? She was trying to do her homework when you came through and you did that. So, and so you're always doing that in your classroom, in your house, looking for people's perspective. It's a little bigger than that when you involve strangers. That's why I put this graphic on here. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you might not know anything about. You don't know what somebody's going through. You don't know what somebody has going on in their life all the time. Dr. Covey tells a story in one of his 7 Habit videos. If you're ever bored, search Seek First to Understand and listen to that story. You're never bored, I'm sure. But truly, this is all about understanding people's perspective. Now, I don't claim to know more than Dr. Covey. I really don't. But I think that he had it backward. I'm just going to put it out there. I mean, he's not listening anyway. I think 5 should have came before 4. 5 to me is the root of interacting with other people. You can't really think win-win until you think about other people's perspectives, until you think about what their point of view is and what they want. If you don't know them well enough to know what they want, how do you give them their part of the win? So I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. I've studied it a little bit for a while, but I feel like maybe 5 goes before 4. I don't know. But I'll call Franklin Covey Group tomorrow and let them know. I'm sure they'll reprint all their materials. But anyway, so again, a little stopping point for us. I wanted to make a connection this time to habit 5 with the whole driving thing. So I don't know about you guys. I am an excellent driver, probably the best driver you've ever met. I know. I sometimes will be flying down Currituck Highway, hoping not to get my 12th ticket. And I'll come up on somebody driving slow and I'm like, oh my God, what is this person doing? Moron. It's straight to everybody who's driving a car that's not in your car is an idiot or a moron, right? And they deserve to have their pictures taken and persecuted on Facebook. Okay, well, I have recently had a huge paradigm shift with regard to driving. I have a teenage driver in my home that I don't think terrified is a strong enough word to describe how she feels about driving. It often starts with, no, really, you have to drive the car. No, come on, we're just going to the Dollar General. Get in the car, get in the drive, but I don't want to. No, I'm not driving you for the rest of your life. You have to drive. And when we get in the car, there's a lot of me going, sorry, out the window while she slowly creeps down the road. So my paradigm shift has been now realizing that as I approach a slow car on the road, maybe they're not a moron. Maybe they're a teenage child who's terrified about driving. So I kind of had that paradigm shift changes my reaction to those drivers. So that's a connection for me in the parenting world. I don't know how you guys feel. Not my husband. He still honks at him and tells him they're a moron. He doesn't care. I'm like, but I wouldn't want anyone to do that to our baby. He's like, whatever, move. They'll learn. Step on that briar. Anyway, so that's my connection for that. And then we have 2 more habits. Habit 6 is Synergize. It's the habit of cooperation, working together, teamwork. It's more than just teamwork, though. It's a little bit bigger than that in that it's the concept of recognizing people's strengths and skills and knowing your own strengths and skills and taking the best of everybody and putting it together to build like a super team. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just a team, but it's a super team. The principle that guides this is that basically the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. If you have a athletic team, like maybe a baseball team, and you have a great first baseman, well, that's great. You have a great first baseman. But if your first baseman works with your shortstop and you also have some really heavy hitters, when it's your turn up to bat, then you get the dream team, right, Nicole? You get the one that goes all the way and wins all the championships. But they wouldn't be able to do that individually. The whole of everyone together is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's it ain't no habit 6 for no reason. It's hard. We went all the way up there to get to it. We had to get through all those other habits first to get to it because it's not easy. Because it also is built on that system of trust that was below it. I might know somebody else's strengths and skills, but I also have to have built some trust with them to put them on my super team. So it's a little bit bigger than that. And like I said, I'm giving you the 2-minute version of these, but there's a lot more to it. All right, so habit 7 takes us to renewal. It's a whole nother world. It's like 1, 2, 3 was private victory, 4, 5, 6 was public victory, and then we have 7 on its own. It's all based on a renewal of mind, body, wellness, spirit. So what habit 7 does is it's called Sharpen the Saw. So it comes from the story of a man who's got to cut down a tree, and he is the tree's a problem. He's gotta get the saw and cut it down. So he goes into his shed, gets this old rusty saw, and he's just going and going to town on this tree, and it's taking him forever. He cannot cut this tree down because it's taking a really long time. And somebody walks along and says, "Ooh, what you doing?" And he says, "On down a tree." "Well, it seems like it's taking you a long time. Have you thought about sharpening that saw?" "I can't. I'm really busy right now cutting down this tree." Sometimes you got to stop and take the time to actually sharpen that saw to be more efficient. This, as I know most of you are women, I think we're all women on here. This is really hard for women because we know that we should focus on our hobbies and our health and our interests sometimes. Several of you probably participated in the Thursday healthy selfishness things. I listened to that one man from the university tell me I should exercise while eating Oreos. I get it. It's hard for me to take the time to take care of myself. But if you don't, then you can't help anybody. So that's where habit 7 comes in. If you don't sharpen that saw, then you're never going to get that tree to come down. You're never going to be efficient. It's going to take you 10 times longer to cut the tree down than if you had just stopped, taken a break, sharpen the saw. So that's where the sharpen the saw thing comes in. It is, well, I was going to say that it was also one of those things that I think is difficult during this COVID situation, because we have to take time to exercise and think about our health. But yet here I've gotten the least amount of movement in a long time. When I'm at Moyock Elementary, I'm up and downstairs, I'm walking all around. Currently, since March 13th, I sit a lot in this chair. So, it has to be more conscious, I think, habit 7 than what we used to maybe be able to do. But I also, going back to this matrix, this continuum, again, I think it's strategic in the way they put it in a circle around everything. Like, at first you look at this graphic and you're like, that's a dumb, stupid looking graphic. But if you really think about what it is, it's really, well, I think of it as habit 7 just wrapping its arms around all the other habits and giving it a big old hug and saying, hey, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't love anybody, you can't do anything, you can't have a victory in any way. So that's my habit 7 thought. Anyhow, that puts me at the end. I have some powerful Covey quotes that I want to share. This first one says, and this goes with the disclaimer I just told you a little bit ago. Remember, to learn and not to do is really not to learn. To know and not to do is really not to know. We know these habits, but if we don't apply them, then do we really know them? Just like my son, who does, if I have to tell you to put the shoes on, are you really the one? Now, again, I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I know I shouldn't eat the whole bag of Oreos, but I mean, it's gone. So sometimes I'm going to do it anyway. You know what I mean? To know and to do is two things, and it's very hard. I'll skip over the middle one. It's a little long and we're at 9:59. But the last one I just wanted to leave you with, if you want to have more freedom, more latitude in your job, be a more responsible, a more helpful, a more contributing employee. If you want to be trusted, be trustworthy. So yeah, that applies mostly to the workplace, because that is what the 7 Habits program was originally designed for. But for us as people, if we want to be trusted, be trustworthy. So, all right, so I stopped presenting that. And I haven't been very good about keeping an eye on the chat box, but I just want to say that's really all I have. If anyone has any questions, please unmute your mic, shout it out. If I missed something in the chat box, somebody let me know. Thank you for all your positive feedback and for joining me this morning. It really speaks to my heart, and I love all you guys, and I want you all to be successful, because I do think we can all win. So, awesome.
Thanks so much, Melissa.
Thank you.